Are you seeing a rise of AI used in attacks? What's happening in the real world? Not like what's in the movies, but what are you seeing? And is AI actually being used for offensive, for hacking, etc.? The data's out there. I've seen recently with Slack, like using customer data, even if you're paying to, train the AI, they didn't even ask for permission, they just used it. So from a privacy point of view, AI, bit of Wild West, it feels like. So from a cybersecurity point of view, it seems really worrying. Any hope?
There's hope. There's absolutely hope. Whenever it comes to security, a lot of security-minded organizations are trying to figure out what is going to be the guidance for not only today, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and so on.
Everyone, it's David Bombal coming to you from Cisco Live with a very, very special guest. Omar, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Great to have you here. You're very, very well known in the industry. I believe 27 books at the last count, right?
Yes, sir. I use them to raise my monitors, so they're perfect for that.
I don't believe that for a moment. You've written books on all kinds of topics. Perhaps you could give us like a quick overview of some of the books that you've really enjoyed writing or that are very popular that people have given you feedback on. But I mean, 27 and you're writing new books as well, I believe.
Yes, sir. It's not overnight.
I'm sure.
All right. It's been at Cisco for 25 years, and I started to contribute to some books before that. It's a wide spectrum from certification books to books that are now used in university, and a few related to how emerging technologies like AI is impacting pretty much everything.
Yep.
Cybersecurity, networking, programming, and so on.
So I know some of the books that you've written, like Pentest Plus. You've also done CyberOps for Cisco.
Indeed.
And you've done some CCIE security books as well, right?
Yes, sir. The S-Core, CCIE, the exam that you're required to pass in order to get your CCNP and CCIE. Yeah.
And more recently, another AI cybersecurity book. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Actually, I just published two about the same time.
Yep.
One was with a very good colleague of mine from the Oxford University. His name is Pitar.
Yeah.
And that one is around securing AI implementations, a little bit more from a high level. As a matter of fact, I'm working on one that is a little bit more in-depth.
Right.
And my joke in those books is that by the time that I press the first key, they become obsolete. The technology is changing, but it gives you a blueprint of how to look into how AI is impacting the technologies. What are the tools that are necessary for you to make sure that you're securing AI correctly, and also how to use AI for security, right? So you have the two dimensions of using AI for security, but also securing AI. What I do for Cisco mostly is a little bit of both, but also looking into the security of the AI implementations across the whole portfolio.
I need to ask you, because I think a lot of people will be interested in this. Are you seeing a rise of AI used in attacks? Because, I mean, the one that we always know is deepfakes or, videos with Tom Cruise or, things like that. But perhaps you can tell us what's happening in the real world, not like what's in the movies, but, what are you seeing? And is AI actually being used for offensive, for hacking, etc.?
The short answer is yes.
Yep.
The longer answer is beyond deepfakes.
Yep.
Is beyond the traditional social engineering attacks, right? That's what I call more of the attacks of the 2023, 2022.
Interesting.
The new waves that people are seeing nowadays is different obfuscation techniques.
Okay.
And where attackers, if you think about AI, is abstracting a lot for people.
Yep.
So the way that you program, the way that you interact with the computer is changing.
Yep.
So nowadays you have non-technical people that can use, libraries like LangChain, Llama Index, and a lot of abstraction into the things that you don't have to have a PhD in data science to then use AI for something. That something can be to create a new phone, create a new exploit, create a new obfuscation technique, look for vulnerabilities. The perfect example of that is beyond research. Last year, to catch the eye of my organization, I did a workshop and I cloned the 12,000 security advisories at the time in GitHub. And then what is in the security advisory? Well, a link potentially to a GitHub pull request. What is in a pull request? A commit. What is in a commit? A diff. What is in a diff? The code that was vulnerable and the code that, of course, has the fix. If I put that into a model and say, hey, tell me what are the best ways for me to create an exploit. Of course, if you ask ChatGPT, it's going to block you. there's a whole bunch of uncensored models that you can send that out. So of course, for my demonstration, I was showing, how in some cases, will hallucinate. It will give you some very generic cross-site scripting, always just script text. But in some other ones, opens your eyes. And then you can ask, of course, what are the CWEs, the common weakness enumerators, the root cause of the vulnerability, and explain it to a developer so they do not commit the mistake. Or you can actually do that to another model, so make it better, right? Which is a different conversation. But, I digitize my voice, so, it will be a little bit real. So the deep fake was there. Fast forward a couple of months, now I'm seeing, very early indicators of, and I will not say early indicators, we're definitely seeing some evidence that attackers are actually using these techniques, of course, to create exploits. And especially in third-party software, in open source. That's the reason of, the big push for supply chain security and, the whole SBOM, movement and so on. So yeah, it's a combination of many different areas and where attackers are leveraging the ease of use of the technology and also combining the different techniques. Another example is reconnaissance.
I was going to ask you about that.
Open source intelligence. Like, forget about active reconnaissance, just open source intelligence. Getting information from certificate transparency or from Shodan or from, social media and so on. If I vectorize that information, so in other words, create embeddings on different things that I can gather from different places, put into a vector database, like ChromaDB, Pinecone, pgvector, a whole bunch of them, right? And then create, agents with, prompt templates and agents with line chain or llama index and so on. Now I have an army of people doing reconnaissance for me and profiling an individual or a company while I sleep. That's a significant difference of what we're seeing nowadays of not only the potential, but, of course, the capabilities of these newer technologies to accelerate attacks.
So is that escalating? You're seeing more and more of those kind of attacks?
It will continue to escalate. Unfortunately, we also have to think about how we reinvent incident response for some of these. A lot of the techniques will be the same, right? But a lot of them will be different. And I'll give you a couple of examples.
That'd be great.
One is remediation. What is remediation of a model? Is it pulling the plug? Right? You don't put the plug in BGP, right? You bring down the internet. But as you become reliant and you rely on this technology, the remediation will be a little bit different. But then the other one is forensics. In an AI model, forensics will be a little bit different, right? And there's a lot of metrics for accuracy, for bias, and so on. For security, not a lot of them exist. So if I'm an attacker and I manipulate weights and so on, there may be things that we're missing from a forensic capability. So that's an area of research. The other one is a really big one is reproducibility. If I get a prompt and I give it to a model, to your RAG implementation and so on, it may be that with the same prompt, with the same context of the data, you may get different results. Right? So whenever somebody comes to you and say, hey, investigate this new vulnerability, cross-site request forgery, server-side request forgery, NIDOR, SQL injection, you typically have a set of instructions of click here, put this payload, basically the recipe of an exploit. For these new implementations, even if you give that prescriptive thing and the same prompt, you may get different results. And if an attacker is manipulating things behind the scenes, it can do a lot of obfuscation on the actual attacks against the AI system itself.
Are you finding that attackers are using their own open source AIs? They're also using like ones that they can just pay for that are available?
There's an assumption that it's going to be using both, right? I cannot sugarcoat it, right? I mean, just the dual nature of technology. If I use Claude or GPT or Mistral, an attacker is probably using it faster, better, and cheaper. It is reality. And then also the definition of an attacker, right? Criminals to scam people versus nation state against a critical infrastructure. And the other thing is AI comparing models, inference, and so on, and all these systems that we're putting now together they're becoming critical infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's like, back in the day, we looked at the security of routing and networking, and we still do, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's you have to worry about that. Plus
this.
Yeah. So you looked at BGP, for example, that we were just talking about it, right? So how to secure these implementations and make sure that there's no route manipulation attacks. Now you have to think about that critical infrastructure is inference coming from a specific model, whether it's ChatGPT, so the attacks against that infrastructure, while they use the same technology to attack you, that's something that we also have to figure out, as an industry. Right. But going back to your question related to them using specific models. Yes, if you ask ChatGPT to create an exploit, they have really good guardrails, right, to prevent that. You can bypass that with prompt injection, and even indirect prompt injection attacks, embedding some prompts in a PDF, for example. A lot of the models, White Rabbit Neo is a perfect example. I don't know there's a company now, but it's an open source model, it's uncensored, and there's plenty of them out there that people are fine-tuning and then taking, those guardrails out or not putting any guardrails to then be able to create an exploit, to then be able to actually do, X, Y, and Z. If that is somebody like me, right, or ethical hackers, imagine the very resourceful attackers, the ones that actually has a lot of money and infrastructure.
State
So for sure, that's an area of concern.
Yeah, so we've got AI being used to attack, but obviously AI is being used to protect. But I'm just thinking about opportunities for everyone who's watching. We definitely don't want any of the people watching to become black hat. We want to steer them on the right path. So there are a lot of opportunities, right, to help companies secure AI.
Absolutely.
So perhaps you can talk about that.
There are tons of opportunities in there. So one thing that I always recommend is go beyond the model.
Okay.
It's not securing just the model. And even regulation, I'm not going to go into the regulation.
Let's talk technical,
But in the technical aspect of it, a lot of people are focusing on the models. Model theft attacks, which we have to pay attention to. But now as we try to build systems that then are using multiple models, we're introducing a lot of security, deficiencies.
That's a good polite way to put it.
Vulnerabilities.
Yes.
That are security 101. For example, if you're familiar with retrieval augmented generation, everybody's talking about this, right? You use your data, your sensitive documents, you use an embedding model, something like Cohere or OpenAI is, embedding models, and there's plenty of them out there. You're converting your data, your text, your PDFs, etc., into numbers, basically, put them into a vector database. That embedding model, in some cases, they're leaking information out of the corporation.
Exactly.
And then people are putting guardrails just into the inference model, right? The other one is, as every company, every sector is asking their people, how can we use AI to accelerate the things that we have? Whether it's security, collaboration, etc. And a lot of people are experimenting. And as I mentioned, these things are getting abstracted in the way that even non-technical people are playing with that they have never thought about access control, least privilege, and so on. There are other areas of focus and where now that we're moving to an agent-based era, right? So using more agents instead of chatbots and copilots. How can we determine what is the required privilege to an agent? Because pretty much everything is running as a root nowadays. And that is paired to a human or to an application. Because these are now ephemeral entities that are getting spun up, based on specific criteria. And it's not only about RAG, but using a tool, getting data from an API and so on. And then they will disappear, right? And you have your personas. So that's another area that we should focus on. And how do we have the appropriate access control mechanisms? How we have the basic 101 least privilege applied to these systems, plus the more sophisticated attacks. How can we detect if weights in a model has been manipulated? And the bigger one is supply chain security, right? If you look at Hugging Face, if you're not familiar with Hugging Face,
tell us
biggest platform, think about like the GitHub of models. And Hugging Face is the one that is being mentioned the most. There are others, right? TensorFlow has one and so on, but definitely Hugging Face. If you look at Hugging Face early this year, I'm not talking about, the Wayback Machine that you can go back. So if you go back I used the Wayback Machine and look at Hugging Face in the beginning of the year, it was probably something about 300,000 models. I haven't checked today, but definitely last week, as I was giving a presentation about it, it was 650,000 plus.
Wow.
Right.
Wow.
So if you look at it, amazing. I love it. Technology is moving so fast and so on. In some cases, it's scary, but always optimistic of technology. A lot of those models, actually the majority of them, have used very insecure frameworks like Pickle, right? And you saw, a couple of months ago, 100 models being taken down from Hugging Face because real-life attackers manipulate them. So now imagine if you're a software developer. I found out about, a specific model because of a research paper. Oh, I want to try this. It's in Hugging Face. Oh, there's a new version because this person says that is, better examples, etc. I grab it. I put that into my infrastructure. And what an attacker can actually do. So that supply chain security is really top of mind. Right. And even if you look at inventory, that's a bigger one. Most companies don't have a good way to do inventory of their AI implementations. And so I sit on the board of OASIS, it's a standards organization. I'm the chair of this thing called the Common Security Advisory Framework. We use machine-readable security advisories and try to modernize the way that we do, vulnerability management and so on. And a lot of the conversations in there is how can we secure this supply chain, right, with SBOMs, software bill of materials, get a good inventory. If you look at AI models, luckily now, there's a lot of progress in there. But a few months ago, I'm not talking about years, months ago, we didn't even have a good way to even capture the inventory of a model. And people may think, it's the same as an SBOM because it's software. You have, SBOMs for quite some time. SPDX is a standard for that. Another one is Cyclone DX from OWASP. So you have a good way to inventory the list of ingredients that make up software. In an AI model, it's a little bit different. It's beyond that. You have to worry about the SBOM, but you also have to worry about the training environment that the model was trained on. Also, if that is manipulated or is not approved by a company, that's another thing that you want to worry about. The other one is what is the data? AI is not AI without data that you use to train or fine-tune or RAG. There's always the three elements. You train from scratch, super expensive, only a few companies, like Cisco and, and the rest, are doing that. Fine-tuning, a little bit more accessible, still requires expertise and infrastructure and RAG. And so looking not only the model, but the whole system, again, what is the data? What is the purpose of the implementation? What is the training environment? And then all the auxiliary libraries like LangChain and so on. That's part of the traditional SBOM. So SPDX in the Linux Foundation, they just released, they're about to release 3.0 that includes a profile for AI bombs.
Right.
And I work with a company called Manifest. That we looked at, they're pretty well known in the SBOM community. And we looked at, what are the minimum requirements that you should have in inventory. And then we also fed that back to the SPDX and the Linux Foundation and also OWASP to Cyclone DX. So now, within weeks, you're actually going to see these standards now supporting at least a good way to have an inventory of AI implementations.
It sounds like a bit of a Wild West, right?
It is Wild West.
It
is.
It's worrying because I think it's. We've been in this game for a while. It's this. Everyone wants to go to the cloud. Now everyone wants AI, and everyone's jumping on this.
And that's a really good observation. Many people have asked me, is this just cloud again? Right. Or even, is the cloud dead because it's expensive? I'm not going to go into that. But is this another cloud? Do I have to worry about security from another cloud? The short answer is no.
Okay.
One of the big differences of this technology is that everybody is now becoming accessible to everybody.
Yeah, like you said, non-technical people.
Non-technical people. I'll give you an example. This is kind of behind the scenes at Cisco and so on. So I sit in an organization called Security and Trust. We are a pretty large organization. So you have the product security incident response team, I used to belong to that team. CSIRT, the traditional incident response team within a company.
Yep.
Then we have the insider threat team, a very big offensive security team that we're tasking to find zero-day vulnerabilities in Cisco products and services and other entities. And this is not Talos, this is beyond Talos.
Yep.
And then and a whole bunch of other, forensics teams, etc. It's a pretty big organization, about close to 1,000 people.
Yep.
And within there, kind of like my carrot was, I want to do an innovation challenge. This is last year. And everybody has to play with AI.
Yep.
Whether you're a PM, an intern, and so on. I made a little competition, right? And even though we have a function that is dedicated, for AI security and everything, but I wanted for everybody to truly understand and think about how this technology can impact everything that we do.
Yeah.
From doing forensics analysis into a machine to doing an evaluation. Evaluation, we call it evaluation, but like a pen test or a red team, and how we augment that to programming, how we can create better tools and so on. A lot of people, you opened my eyes. I was joking that if I have 3 teams, that will be amazing. And we had 27 teams, 70 people participating, etc. And what I was seeing is that non-technical people, they were not afraid to using these technologies, watching a video, follow through, putting LangChain, in a way, and asking the questions that we all should have been asking 10 years ago.
Yep.
What embedding model should I use? It's like, oh, wow, we don't have a strategy for that. Let me actually, assign people to that. Most vector databases don't even support encryption. Right?
That's crazy.
So, as a matter of fact, I was even talking here about how to secure vector databases. I just published a paper about it. But again, vector databases is a newer type of database. It's not new. Basically, whenever you convert text or images into numbers, you put them to a store that you can do similarity searches.
Yeah.
Many methods on that. And then you have retrieval, that does the word retrieval augmented generation.
Yep.
Retrieval method, re-ranking techniques, etc. That you get the data, provide some context, and you reduce the likelihood of hallucinations.
Yeah.
Very attractive for many people.
Yeah.
If I vectorize, again, from certificate transparency information in OSINT to my security policies, examples of vulnerabilities, and so on, I can then accelerate, provide better support to an engineer that is either programming or fixing a vulnerability.
Yeah.
These are other examples, or potentially even do a pull request automatically.
Yep.
Plenty of use cases. And a lot of these non-technical people were putting into asking the questions, and the main value add and the benefit was for the security people, for us.
Yeah.
And again, these are also security folks, but, non-technical roles, asking these questions that, again, should have been asked 10 years ago in the industry.
Yep.
Not at Cisco.
Yep.
Right? The whole industry. So it's very fascinating on how this, of course, is impacting, many different areas around technology and, healthcare and so on, and how we should look at securing those implementations as well.
I mean, to me, it looks really bleak, like Wild West. The data's out there. I've seen recently with Slack, like using customer data, even if you're paying to, train the AI, they didn't even ask for permission, they just used it. So from a privacy point of view, AI, bit of Wild West, it feels like. So from a cybersecurity point of view, it seems really worrying. Any hope?
There's hope. There's absolutely hope. There are a lot of organizations across the industry that are asking the same questions.
Good.
Whenever I've been blessed in my career that if I'm fixing a vulnerability, again, using the BGP example because it's top of my head for some reason, sometimes I have been on the phone more with Juniper than even Cisco, trying to figure out the how to solve it, and then give the information to Cisco, and then do a coordination of vulnerability, disclosure, and so on. For many years. Now I'm seeing the same. Whenever it comes to security, a lot of security-minded organizations are trying to figure out what is going to be the guidance for not only today, but 3 months from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, and so on. A lot of that guidance, unfortunately, has been more around regulations and so on, but we're moving outside of that, right? That we're trying to see how these new best practices or the existing best practices apply to these technologies and creating frameworks about it. So I'm blessed to be part of the board of Oasis, and with Anthropic Microsoft, NVIDIA, Intel, IBM, of course, Cisco, Microsoft. We're all creating a consortium for securing AI.
Great.
And of course, we're collaborating with NIST, with other agencies like CISA, the NSA, and so on. And we're putting a lot of guidance in the industry, but how to operationalize that guidance and create sample reference architectures and so on. One of the original contributions is Google's, the Open SAIF.
Okay.
It's an Open Secure AI Framework. We changed the name for the coalition because it got donated to Oasis, or the IPR got transitioned, and that's the foundation. We're kind of rebooting that, right? Modernizing, even though it was created a few months ago, right? And you may think that, oh my God,
That's
modernizing
very
of something that,
Yeah.
but it's creating a framework on how fast we can create this guidance as technology evolves.
Yeah.
Right? And then examples of that. Give you the perfect example right now. What is an AI vulnerability?
Yeah.
Right. What is an AI security vulnerability?
Yeah.
In many cases, you're saying, okay, so if a prompt injection is one, for sure, you know.
Easy, yeah.
But prompt injection, if you think about me chatting with a chatbot and saying that Omar is ugly, does this, blah, 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 who's the victim of that? The person that is doing that. So is that a true vulnerability or not?
Yeah.
But what if I have a firewall copilot?
Yep.
Or, you know, an HR system that I can give a resume, you know, that's a typical example. You give a resume with an indirect prompt injection, so a prompt within the PDF with white fonts that the human cannot read, but the machine can read, and then do some action. Or a firewall copilot that then I can inject some type of configuration or obfuscate the configuration and then manipulate the system, right? That absolutely is an AI vulnerability.
Yep.
But there's a lot of talks about an AI vulnerability or security vulnerability versus bias, ethics, and we're also trying to get those taxonomies out of the way, so everybody will be somewhat in the same page, and then truly understand how we should address all of them, right? We definitely should address them, but what security teams should be prioritizing, what your AI governance and legal teams should be prioritizing, and working together really more closely than ever. And it's not because of regulations and everything else, but it's because of the whole AI governance within the organization. I'm talking about inventory, right? Really knowing what your people are using, where it goes, you know, what technology goes into products, into the applications that you have, whether, again, you're a Cisco of the world or Anthropics of the world or a healthcare system, right? So that's the scope of the charter of that organization.
That's great from an industry point of view, right? I'm really glad to hear that. But let's bring it back to the individual.
Yeah.
If I want to ride this wave, I always recommend everyone rides the new wave, and AI is that wave. It's the hype, it feels like, in many cases at the moment. What's your advice? If I'm a young person or I want to get into this field, what would you advise people to do?
Yeah, so one thing, even outside of AI, whenever people ask me, hey, how can I get started in ethical hacking? Or always my guidance was to pace yourself. Technology is moving fast.
Yeah.
Well, fast forward into now, technology is moving a lot faster.
Yeah.
Don't get overwhelmed, right? Think about what are, again, the non-technical people asking questions that the really hardcore technical people should have asked 10 years ago.
Yep.
Right? So look into how this is affecting the work that you do. What are the things, yes, the way that we can communicate with computers and we use computers will change. The way that we program computers now is being augmented. It will also change. But how that technology, you know, you have to always have some fundamental knowledge of how this works.
Yeah.
The human in the loop is crucial nowadays.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some technical works that will evolve, right? I'll give you a good example. Many people, whenever they start in cybersecurity, they start in a security operations center, in a SOC.
Yeah.
Right. The question that I get all the time, immediately, whenever I talk to the young folks and so on, should I even go to that?
Yeah.
Am I going to get replaced if I go into that aspect? And the short answer is no, right? It is evolving. So a tier 1 analyst, and again, I'm going to give you a real life example, not by the book. Tier 1 analyst right now in my organization is working with a Jupyter notebook. And of course, there's Splunks of the world and everything else. But, you know, you're going to get augmented. And we have been doing this before the chatgpt era and so on. It's with traditional machine learning. And And what you're seeing is that the level of a tier 1 is becoming a tier 2.
Yeah.
Because also the way that you learn is accelerating faster.
Yeah.
The way that I learn now is significantly different than before.
Yeah.
And also has to adopt, augment, having your tutors, etc. But looking into how can you develop a program in place that you don't get burned out, right? Again, technologies, will continue to change, but it's somewhat actionable to look at the problem, right, on how AI is solving some of those problems. A lot of people actually are trying to get AI and find the problem to solve instead of looking at the problem. And we do need a lot of people, technical people, that really can spot the FUD versus reality, that can also be augmented, with AI, go beyond the model, go beyond ChatGPT, try to understand, how this technology can interact with other systems, what are vector databases, how dimensionality of data works, so for an AI model to actually do something, right? And then, of course, if you're going to ethical hacking, how somebody can manipulate this.
Yeah.
If you're going more into incident response, how can I use the technology, or an attacker can use that to obfuscate, these technologies, and then how do I do forensics better, faster, and so on. And unfortunately, it's going to be using AI, right?
Yeah.
It's augmenting using AI, especially in this concept. I don't know if you have heard of constitutional AI, right?
Tell us.
So constitutional AI was a concept that Anthropic, had probably 2.5 years ago. And it's basically using AI to monitor AI, right? After they introduced that, a lot of people thought about, okay, this is good, of looking at a model, observing a model. Can I use AI to observe the rest of the system, right? And the answer is yes. And of course, Cisco has technology and that, like Motific and so on. But looking, like if you're getting started, looking at how the techniques of doing incident response, monitoring, how things that AI potentially have gaps that will never, ever, you will always have to have some type of human in the loop.
Yeah.
As people are developing programs, I will definitely, encourage newcomers, because it's very, very overwhelming to look at those areas, right? And then, of course, you still have to have the foundations. Networking was not going to go away. As a matter of fact, it's going to evolve, but the technology will continue to start with the fundamentals in there. Even programming is a very hot topic of, is it going to get replaced and so on. If you are not familiar with the underlying technology on how even AI may be constructing something, who's going to defend? Who's going to be able to do forensics? Who's going to be able to actually do truly incident response after something is manipulated, right? So I don't think that, security and programmers and everything is that. Is definitely change, and look into the way that how technology changes and how those roles, but the fundamentals always are going to be there, right?
So is it still the same as in the past? Go and do CCNA or Network Plus. Can you perhaps give us just a sort of like a roadmap, if you've got, I'm starting at zero, what would I do if I started today? Because I want to jump on this wave, right? I don't want to, like everyone, I don't want to spend 10 years getting to a certain level. I want to try and do the quick way, I would say the hack the way. So have you got sort of a roadmap that I can follow?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically, it all depends on the role, right?
Sure.
It's so broad.
Let's focus on red teaming perhaps, or hacking.
I like that. I like that. So if you're thinking about ethical hacking, definitely you have to have a foundation of networking.
Yep.
Do you have to pass a CCNA to actually go in there? Probably not.
Yeah.
But CCNA will definitely give you a blueprint.
Yeah.
And for me, what certifications do, in many cases, is create a blueprint and push me.
Yeah.
That I have some achievement that I can say, okay, this is something that now can I apply.
Yeah.
Most companies, are evolving into requiring a specific certification and so on. But at least that gives you a really good blueprint.
Yeah.
So of course, in the case of networking, CCNA, is the de facto. Other ones, related to ethical hacking, a lot of people try to jump from CCNA to OSINT.
Yeah.
Pace yourself.
Yeah.
Probably something like Pentest Plus.
Yeah.
To get you the whole methodology of hacking.
Yeah.
And in some cases, even the non-technical aspects of the ethical hacking. In real world, you have to deal with scope.
Yeah.
And the things that will keep you out of jail and in business, right?
Yep.
So those certifications will actually provide you that. And then, from there, you pace yourself to the OSCPs of the world. And there's so many of them. As a matter of fact, I have a GitHub repository. We can make it available. That we have tons and tons of certifications. And what I always say is that look at the blueprints of the certifications. They're free. You don't have to actually pay, If a blueprint is asking the same concept 2 or 3 times, that's something that you have to prioritize.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a fundamental. Outside of networking, even though programming is going to change, you have to have somewhat of a foundation on how applications actually are created.
Yeah.
Even if it's augmented by AI. Python, the typical, even for data science, Python. How I got started, and this is a little bit of a personal story.
Great.
I didn't get started with the AI thing because of the ChatGPT era. A few years ago, a good friend of mine, he's no longer at Cisco, we wanted to do automated trading, like literally.
Wow.
We wanted, but here we are. I'm still here, so I was not that successful at doing it, right?
Which I'm glad about myself.
So, but I went to a program, a 2-year program with Harvard, but it was a mini competition. We looked at the blueprints of things. Of course, there was no certification just of machine learning at the time. But we're looking at what are the fundamentals that I need.
Yeah.
At the time was R. Everybody was programming in R and looking at how we can do back propagation and how we can do a little bit more, again, all predictive, models and then in APIs with like interactive brokers, etc. Right. So that pushed me to then look at the fundamentals, not of how machine learning was actually revolutionizing things. Is what are the things that I need to know from a programming perspective, right? That is applied to that use case, right? In that case, it was automated trading. Again, that was many years ago. A lot of that still applies here, right? Whether it's generative AI and so on. Now, of course, Python libraries make it so much easier. But I will say, go and try to figure out what are those libraries doing behind the scenes. And especially if you want to go into security, especially if you want to go into ethical hacker, and especially if you want to mimic what a real attacker is actually doing, right? Looking at the limitations of the technology and also the power of the technology, right? But I think that will be my guidance to people that are getting started.
Is there a AI cybersecurity type cert, or do I read your book that you've published? Well, because that's the piece that seems to be missing, right? Because we talk about the basics, but how do I do the AI cyber piece?
You will see a flow of training and certifications being. As a matter of fact, Cisco just announced an AI certification for security currently, as of today. Again, might change tomorrow. There are not that many, right? But what you're seeing is that existing certifications and existing programs, whether it's for incident response, for non-technical things like risk management and governance and so on, they're starting to incorporate AI into it. So how to use even a GPT, a very basic GPT for accelerating the threat hunting and then getting information from the malware attack framework, for example. And what you're seeing, the certifications evolving, some of the system certifications evolving to include those topics. So it is inevitable that there will become domains within a certification and tasks for somebody to then probably be augmented by AI. And then knowing what LangChain can do, or the library of the 2025, right? Because it's going to continue to evolve. So you're going to see, new certifications, current certifications evolving, and even the way that we do training, right? Even though we're talking about books and everything else, in the way that I learn, I use books for blueprints. And then since information is changing so fast, I create my own scripts to actually get papers, get, of course, AI to summarize the papers. If it's related to cybersecurity, I get a very basic alert. You should read this on the Saturday because it's very overwhelming. And this is changing so
crazy,
fast. And then, you create that type of framework on, okay, yes, this is new research, but the areas of security are the same. Exactly what we were just talking about earlier. A lot of security one-on-one things that are being omitted because people are experimenting. So, cybersecurity, I will not say that it's going to get obsolete. It's going to get more complicated. it's probably going to be more demand for cybersecurity than the opposite.
Omar, unfortunately, they're chasing us. We've got to end. I could keep you here for hours. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So for everyone who's watching, please connect. I'll put Omar's links below. If you've got any questions, put them in the comments below. Hopefully we'll get you back for more interviews.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.